Okay, good morning, students. Good morning, all. Okay, last week we already had one general lecture from Professor Henk Kummeling, Professor of Constitutional Law from Universiteit Utrecht, the Netherlands. Today, the second general lecture special for you, the law students of Universitas Indonesia. And today's topic is about citizenship. Especially, Professor Henk Kummeling will explain to us the difference between the traditional citizenship that we already recognize, in our constitutional law system, the general constitutional law system. There is some differences, the application of citizenship in the European Union compared to the one that we already know before. Okay, without any we can start the lecture now, but I really want you to pay full attention because EU is something new for law students in Indonesia. Okay, if you're ready to start the lecture, I really expect you to be silent in 1 hour only, Can we start now? Okay, Professor Henk Kummeling asked me to give you some introduction, a little bit, about what European Union is. Okay, he will do it himself. Okay, Professor Henk Kummeling, the floor is yours.
No. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, my colleague, Mr. Isaan Novrizal. Thank you once again for joining us this morning, and good morning to you all. As already been explained, I will tell you somewhat more about the European Union. And the European Union is, of course, a very important institution in ordinary lives of billions and billions of people. And not only in the European Union itself, but also for a lot of people in the world, including Indonesia. You think perhaps the European Union is in the news only because there is Brexit, the United Kingdom getting out of the European Union. That's only in the views of many a small detail. When it comes to ordinary life, the European Union has to deal with all kinds of issues. And just this morning, I read in the Jakarta Post, there is a big discussion going on also amongst politicians in the European Union and Indonesia, because the European Parliament decided that it should abolish the use of palm oil tree in the coming years. So that could create a huge problem, not only for Indonesia, but also for the consumers in
you are the first participant to join the conference.
So this will be a very big issue. I will elaborate somewhat more about what the European Union really is, what it's all about, and I will tell somewhat more about citizenship in the European Union. This has already been introduced last week, so I won't go into detail on that, and now we go to the topics of this lecture. I will first of all give you some facts and figures about the European Union. Number of inhabitants, how much countries are member of it, etc. Then I will turn to the real purpose of the European Union, not in the earlier stages, but in how it works now. And then for lawyers, law students like you, I think the main things are going to be discussed. What is the legal status of the European Union? What kind of institution is it according to law? What are the main characteristics? And then I will say somewhat more about what citizenship contains within the European Union. Very briefly, I say something about the legislative process, how legislation is coming through. And then I will give a brief assessment also on the future of the European Union when it comes to the Brexit issue. The main facts and figures. Well, there you have it on the screen. The number of inhabitants, 508 million. The number of languages, 24 do we have in the European Union. We have a huge annual budget. I don't have it on my bank account, and you probably won't have it yourself. It's a lot of money. The economy is the biggest in the entire world, even bigger than the United States of America. So it's a very important trade partner in many cases. I'll show you a slide later on that issue. We have, as you know, certainly you know it, we have a common currency, which is the euro, and it's been used by 24 countries. So not all countries in the European Union use that same currency. But there are also 4 countries outside the European Union who use the euro as their national currency. So it's also a very important currency in the world. It's been used in many countries, in many places, and it is one of the most stable currencies in the world. I hear for instance, from people from countries in Latin America, civil service there, whenever they earn their salary, they get their salary, they immediately go to the bank and change it for euros or for dollars, because that is a more safer currency than the currency of their home countries. We have momentarily in the European Union 28 states. Currently, which means that, yeah, well, just for this moment, but one country will step out. What states are member of the European Union? Here you have a projection on how the European Union developed, and you see the blue countries are the original countries. France, Luxembourg, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands and Italy. These are the founding fathers, so to say, of the European Union. So the European Union was already there before the United Kingdom was even considering entering the European Union. The United Kingdom came later. You see it, it's here in orange, 1973. Then that was the time, that was the year that the United Kingdom entered. And gradually we saw a very big expansion of the European Union, and especially after the fall of the Berlin Wall. You see this part of Europe, the eastern part of Europe, very quickly after the Berlin Wall fell and the communist regimes there crumbled down, a lot of these countries wanted to become a member of the European Union as such. So a big enlargement at that time, and this is where we stand now. 21 countries. 38, sorry, countries. People tend to forget it, but I would like to stress this once more. The membership of the European Union is entirely voluntary. It's of their own free will. Nobody of these, no country is forced to become a member of the European Union. It's of their own free will. You may also step out of the European Union. It comes at a cost. We are now negotiating with the United Kingdom about these costs, but you can step out, no doubt about that. But the peculiar thing, of course, UK is stepping out, but there are also a lot of countries who are applying for the membership of the European Union momentarily. So it might even happen that in the very near future the European Union will even be enlarged once again. Countries like Albania, Serbia, other countries as well, Bosnia want to become member of the European Union. And to date, even officially, Turkey wants to become a member of the European Union. I think that will be a huge problem momentarily when it comes to the political situation. You know, of course, that President Erdogan of Turkey wants to enlarge his powers, and I say very friendly. There is a referendum coming up on the 16th of April, will be next Sunday, and perhaps somebody could help me, but there's it once again. I think the ghost in the machine has taken over. There is a new constitution of Turkey coming up, and there's a referendum on the next Sunday, coming Sunday I must say, and it will enlarge the powers of the president tremendously. Some would even argue that it will create a dictatorship of the president in Turkey. And from a political point of view, it will be very difficult to become a member of the European Union. And there is another issue there as well, because there is the entrance of the European Union to become a member of the European Union is, well, difficult. You have to live by certain standards of democracy, certain standards of the rule of law, and especially the human rights have to be protected in that country. And especially you have to be member of the European Human Rights Treaty as well. And for Turkey it will cause a tremendous problem if it would really install the death penalty once again. Because in the Human Rights Treaty, the death penalty is explicitly forbidden. So within the European Union, within the framework of the European Council of Europe as well, a death penalty cannot be imposed. If you want to do so, if you want to have a death penalty within your constitutional framework, you immediately cannot become member of the European Union. So entrance for Turkey will be very difficult. But why do all these countries want to become member of the European Union? Well, there's a very simple reason for it. History has shown that it brings more prosperity to all these countries. Prosperity to inhabitants as well. Because there is an open market, a single market, an open economy. People can travel to each and every part of the European Union. They can work there, they can study there. So for a lot of citizens, is it also a very prosperous thing to be in the European Union. So that's the reason that still a lot of other countries are applying for the membership of the European Union. Some extra slides to show, not to show off, not to brag, so let's see how important we are, but it's the reality. When it comes to the trading power of the European Union, it's still the biggest power when it comes to the global export of goods and also the global export of services. The European Union is by far, momentarily, the largest economy. And of course, since we are in Indonesia, I have to show something about Indonesia as well in the relationship between the European Union and Indonesia. That is, when it comes to the trade between the European Union and Indonesia, on an annual basis, some 25 billion euro are at stake. The European Union exports for 10 billion to Indonesia. But there is a trade import to the European Union from Indonesia about 15 billion euro. So Indonesia earns also a lot of money from the export to the European Union. There's a trade surplus for your country. And when you take into account everything that's going on, then the European Union is the fourth largest trading partner of Indonesia. You see all kinds of products are being exported to Indonesia. Including, it's not mentioned there, but palm oil is momentarily a big issue. I already mentioned that. That's also part and parcel of the trading between our two entities. What was the original purpose? In the 50s of last century, the European Union was started with the initial purpose of binding all these countries together. Binding these countries together because they wanted to have no more war. You know that for sure that in the earlier stages of the 20th centuries, but also before that in the 19th century, a lot of wars were going on in Europe. Wars between France and Germany, especially, but we had a Second World War, we had a First World War before that, of course. So finally, the people there, the major politicians said, we want to have no more war anymore on the European continent. And how do we organize that? There's one way only, and that is making sure that we get a strong bond between these countries, and the real motor is binding these economies together. Make sure that the economies are, yeah, well, interlinked, that they have to work to each other. And the way of doing this was creating one single common market for all these countries. That was the initial purpose. So in the beginning, the European Union was, in fact, a European economic community. It had only a basis in economics. But nowadays it's far and far more broader. It has, of course, economy creates all kinds of issues. When you want to improve the economy, it has also to do with the social aspects. How do you deal with your workers, the quality of life of your workers, the rights of your workers. And also about environment. The economy has impact on the environment. It has impact on the health of people. It has impact on other issues as well. So it became quite logical of thinking to further enlarge the policies of the European Union as such. And nowadays it's even gone further. Issues about justice, security and foreign affairs are also being dealt with in a common way for all these countries in the European Union. And that's, I think, a very important enlargement, as you could say, of the goals, the purpose of the European Union. So it's not only about economy anymore, it has to do with a lot of extra things as well. Then, for you lawyers, lawyers in the making, so to say, the important thing, what is the legal status of the European Union? Is it a state, as we know it in constitutional law, a national state like Indonesia and the Netherlands and all these interesting countries as well? Is it an international organization with only sovereign states in it that work together on a single issue? We have been studying the European Union for many years, also as constitutional lawyers, for the constitutional law profession. And the conclusion should be and will be, and that's the common conclusion as we have in Europe as well, it's indeed something in between. When you have a special term for it, we call it not national, not international, we call it supranational. But if you are really looking into it, and especially after the Lisbon Treaty of 2009, my view is, and the view of many is, that really we have to deal with a legal structure that's very close to what we know as to be a national state as well. It has all the core elements of a constitution, and it has elements of a federation in it, and also elements of a confederation. Of course, you are well aware of what the difference is. A confederation is a combination of states that work together on several issues, but there is a right for these countries, these national states, to step out. That's the right to secession. You may step out. And that's indeed the case within the European Union as well. But you see it gradually growing, and in successive treaties where the further development of the European Union was agreed upon, you see that it's growing and growing more and more into a structure that is quite comparable to what we know to be a national state. And you see it on the screen. It has legal personality, legal capacity. It can wheel and deal. It can enter into negotiations. It is liable as such, accountable according to civil law, also according to international law. It has a legal capacity, like any normal state has. It has a full-fledged constitution. I just talked with one of my colleagues, or some of my colleagues this morning about it, but yeah, we call it a treaty, it is the Lisbon Treaty, but if you really look into it from a constitutional law perspective, you see that it's, yeah, well, it has all the elements of an ordinary constitution. It is a written document, the treaty, written document of a higher legal status. It's higher than national law. The Constitutional Court of Justice in Luxembourg has decided that all the law coming from the European Union, the primary law and the secondary law, is binding for all states, other authorities and citizens living in the European Union. What do I mean by primary law? Primary law is the law that's there in the treaty. That's the primary source of law. And secondary law is all the law that is coming from the institutions working within the treaty, like the European Commission, like the European Council. I will tell a bit more about that later on. So, but the primary law and secondary law are binding for all states, other authorities and citizens. So, there is a supremacy of the law within the European Union. Supremacy over national law. So that's also quite ordinary in constitutional, normal constitutional frameworks. We have it there as well. And what also is of importance is that all elements of ordinary states are there. We have a government, we have a legislature, we have a judiciary, all elements that we have in a normal constitution as well. And there is a lot of extras going on in the European Union. There are other institutions, like for instance the Chamber of Audit, like you also have in Indonesia, an ombudsman. We have all kinds of advisory bodies and a Bill of Fundamental Rights. It's also there in the Lisbon Treaty, binding for all citizens, binding for all authorities. So all the common features that you can find in each and every constitution all over the world are there as well in the Lisbon Treaty. We even do have a flag, a European Union flag, and I'm sure that you know it. And we do have an anthem as the European Union. I could sing it for you this morning, but you probably won't like to hear my voice, so I don't try it. Perhaps you could find it on YouTube and I can hear it. But we have all the ordinary symbols that you have in a national state as well are there for the European Union. So quite a lot of similarities there compared to what we have in the normal, ordinary constitutional framework on a national state level. And the fact that there are fundamental rights also implies to a large extent that there is a citizenship there. And the citizenship of a national state participating in the European Union implies automatically that you are a citizen of the European Union as well. And what does that imply? What is the meaning of that you have a citizenship? First of all, I would like to stress that it's additional to national citizenship. The fact that you're a citizen of the European Union does not mean anymore that you're no longer a member of the citizen of the national country. It's a combination. If you are the nationality of one member state, then you immediately become a citizen of the European Union as well. And what does that mean? If you are an EU citizen, then it implies a lot of things. For instance, there cannot be any discrimination. There's the spook once again. What do I do? Is it magic? Or is there a special bug? Not very much in favor of the European Union. Okay. As a citizen, non-discrimination. But I think the more important things are, for instance, you have equal access to the civil service of the European Union. Each and every member, each and every citizen in the European Union can work for all the European institutions on an equal basis. You, as a citizen of the European Union, could move and reside freely. You can go to any country within the European Union without any problem, without visas, without any obstacles, and you can live there in each and every country. You don't need special permits. If I, as a Dutchman, want to live in Germany or in Italy, I can live there. No problem whatsoever. As a European Union citizen, I can vote for the European Parliament, and I can vote in each and every country where I live at it. As a Dutchman, I can vote for the European Parliament in France, if I live there. Or in Italy, or in Germany. Whenever I'm living somewhere else, then I can vote at that place for the European Parliament. I can even stand as a candidate, if I want to. I don't want to, but let's say I wanted to. I can even stand as a candidate in Germany for the European Parliament, or as a candidate in France. And up until now, I could also stand as a candidate in the United Kingdom, if the people in the parties in that country would allow me to participate in that elections, of course, and if they wanted to have me on the list. But that's also part and parcel of the citizenship, that you can elect and you can be elected in each and every country of the European Union. Very important issue. There's also protection by each and every embassy and consulate. Perhaps when I would be in problems here in Indonesia, I never will be, of course. I'm a very likable citizen and will not do anything wrong. But suppose that I would commit a crime or have a certain problem here in Indonesia with my driver's license, and I could turn to each and every embassy within the European Union, Denmark or whatever country. They will help me. And they have to help me, because all these embassies, all these consulates are there to help each and every European citizen. You can, as a citizen, of course, petition to the European Parliament, you can go to the Ombudsman, and you have also access to all the documents of the European Union. So there's a lot of transparency, and it has to be a lot of transparency within the European Union. There is also a very important issue about the right of workers moving in the European Union. Already, you know already that you can reside everywhere if you want to. But can you work everywhere? No. Very important is to stress that there is no need for a work permit. As a Dutchman, I can work in any place, in any country in the European Union. No work permits required. And I can even stay in a country, even my employment has been finished. So there's no need for having extra money in there, or having work in a certain country. You can stay there. And there is also the need for an equal treatment. So when you're working in a country, you have to be treated equally to the national citizens of the country when it comes to issues like working conditions and other social and tasks. What is a task? It is tax, with an X. Sorry, typo. Tax advantages. So that's also very important thing. And then, then becomes it more and more difficult, because how do we deal with diplomas? There is a general principle that we want to have a mutual recognition of professional qualifications, that you as a lawyer can work in other countries as well. But of course, it would create a lot of issues. If you are trained in Indonesian law, then probably you have hardly understanding about what is going on in Malaysia. And the same goes in the Netherlands and France, for instance. When you are educated in the Netherlands, and a lot of civil law, criminal law, administrative law is indeed still a national issue, then you probably would not have any understanding of what the system is in Germany or in France, etc. So in many cases there are some extra requirements, and especially, for instance, language requirements as well. So when I want to become a lawyer in France, there's a need for language proficiency as well. I have to understand these people there. And it goes the other way around as well. So there are some extra requirements. There's a mutual recognition in principle. You can apply for the recognition of your diploma. And there's a special procedure for it. And it mostly contains the length of your training and the content of your training, of course. And there's a special agency who has to decide on the issues, and it has to make a decision within a period of 4 months. So no lengthy procedures. Within 4 months, there should be an answer. And what you see is that, for instance, when it comes to in the field of medicine, in many cases the education are on the same level, and there is only a language requirement, because if you want to have a doctor standing next to a bed, then he or she surely has to understand the language of the patient, of course. So that these kind of things happen. But there is a basic principle that we're growing towards more and more mutual recognition of diplomas. And that what's also been helpful, that there's more and more, when it comes to the law issue, more and more integration and harmonization of law within the European as well. So it makes it less difficult to apply for recognition of these diplomas. So there is, I think, very important things. There are very important things attached to European citizenship. It gives you a lot of extras when it comes to the possibility to live and work and vote and etc. And indeed act as an ordinary citizen, as a normal citizen within the European Union. Then I come to the institutional framework. Yeah, this is only a brief glance. I don't write it down. I will tell something more about the main features of the European Union later on. What you see is that we have a lot of institutions there: the European Council, the European Parliament, a lot of other institutions like the Court of Justice, but also we have banks. I did not mention already the European Bank, very important. The European Central Bank, but also the European Investment Bank is also an important issue, important institution. So there are a lot of institutions there that constitute the framework. I will explain just briefly what these institutions, or the main institutions, are all about. First, I start with the government. On the governmental side, we have a European Council. And the European Council is a summit of heads of state and governments, and together with the President of the European Union and the President of the European Commission. It does not sit together on a day-to-day basis, of course, because they're the heads of state and the heads of government, and they only come together they come together on a regular basis. Once in a half, twice a year, 4 times a year, it all depends on the issues at hand. But they are there to decide on the major policy issues. What to do with the developments in Russia? How are we going to handle terrorism? These kind of things are being done. What is the next step when it comes to trade agreements with certain countries? That is an important issue. Then we turn to the day-to-day work, so to say. The day-to-day work has been done by 2 institutions, which are the European Council and the European Commission. And for you, perhaps, the European Council is the most peculiar institution that we have within the European Union, because the European Council consists of the ministers of member states. But it depends all on the issue at hand. Sometimes when it comes, the ministers of finance are sitting together, then the ministers of agriculture or the ministers of education. Whenever a certain issue arises, then these ministers that hold these portfolios on the national level are sitting together and working together and making decisions together on that issue. Because the ministers within the Council of Ministers have the legislative and budgetary power. They are the ones who decide, together with the European Parliament, what kind of amount of money is being used for farmers, or for education, or for exchange projects for students, whatever you want to do. This is an important feature. So each and every occasion you see different faces there, different faces of different people, because it all depends on the issue, the topic at hand, who is sitting together. But these are important, is an important institution not only for legislation and budget, but also when it comes to foreign policy and security, the signing of international agreements, they have to deal with it within the framework of their portfolio. Then we have the European Commission, and that's the real executive. Each and every member state has the possibility to appoint one of the commissioners, and they are responsible for administering the budget, and it has to ensure that the member states really live up by the European legislation and all law requirements. So if some of these countries don't, I'm not giving follow-up to what has been decided on European level or what's there in the treaty, then the European Commission steps in and starts a procedure to make sure that the country will adhere to these states. The European Commission is really the motor of the European Union, because it also proposes draft legislation. That's the real heart of the European Union. They are sitting together on each and every day there in Brussels, and they are really coming up with all these plans, all these issues that are relevant for the European Union. And then we come to a very peculiar feature within the framework of the European Union, which is the President. The President of the European Union is now momentarily Donald Tusk. Is he a real president? Now, that's debatable. Because the main thing that he has to do is represent the European Union externally on foreign affairs and security issues. Whenever Mr. Trump has a problem and he wants to call somebody in the European Union, then he can call Mr. Tusk. But the main thing, in fact, is that he is the chair of the European Council. He's chairing these meetings. And he's elected also by the members of the European Council. Not by any other institution, not by the member states. And in fact, we had a very strange situation just a month ago, perhaps you know that, that Donald Tusk, the current president of the European Union, is from Poland. And the government of Poland, it has changed some years ago, it's a right-wing conservative government momentarily, did not support the candidacy for the second term of Mr. Donald Tusk. Did not support the candidacy of Mr. Tusk. So that the strange situation was that Mr. Tusk himself, he was from Poland, was not supported by his own home country. And the other members of the European Council were very pleased with the work that Donald Tusk had already been doing in the past years. And they said to each other, well, we want to have him once again as our president. And they were standing around him. It was on a press conference. And they said, yeah, well, he is our Donald. As opposed to Donald Trump, he is our Donald. And we want our Donald to continue as a president. So with a large majority, with a big majority, it was decided by the European Council that it would stick to Mr. Donald Tusk as the president of the European Union. The Polish government was not very pleased with that, but yeah, well, it was a majority decision, and that's how the decision is being made. So, well, and you can say it is a president. It is a president like you have in some other states as well. It's more a ceremonial role in many cases. It has a role in foreign affairs. It's not a elected president like you have in Indonesia with real popular legitimacy, supported by the people with a majority vote. But it has a weaker position, you could say. But it is indeed the president of the European Union. Then we have a parliament. And the parliament is a very big parliament. It consists of 751 members. And each and every country has a certain amount of members there. It all depends on the number of inhabitants in each member state. And for instance, Germany is by far the biggest member state, so it has the most seats in the European Parliament. And Luxembourg is one of the smallest, it had only 3 seats in Parliament. So it's composed of members elected in the national states for 5 years on the basis of proportional representation. But the peculiar thing is, yes, I will come back. Wonderful. And the most peculiar thing is, I think, for many, is that although they are elected in their home country, in the parliament, they sit together on a cross-national basis. On a cross-national basis in political groups. Political groups based on ideology. You have social democrats there, you have liberals there, you have members of the Green Party there, and you have this, so you have a political group there, a Green Party group, where all politicians from all countries of the European Union sit together based on that idea, that we have a more greener, sustainable environment. Of course, when it comes to voting in the European Parliament, they take also into account the national issues and the fact they are elected by a certain country, by voters in a certain country. Because, yeah, well, they have also to consider that they want to be re-elected once again after 5 years. So they will make sure that they can explain to citizens in their home country what they have been doing there in the European Parliament. So, of course, the national issues, the national relevance is also taken into account. But the wonderful thing is, and that's I think very intriguing, and it was there from the start already, that the European Parliament really works as an institution. In these political groups in the Parliament, a lot of members from all countries are working together with the same ideology, working for the progress of the common good within the European Union. So indeed, it is a European Parliament. And it has also very important powers. Initially, in the earlier days, in the 50s of the last century, it was only an advisory body. But normally, nowadays, it is a real parliament. It is responsible for the legislation, co-decision in a lot of situations, and it's responsible for the budget. It has to approve the budget. And it also has, like any normal parliament, has all kinds of powers with regard to the scrutiny, can ask information, can ask all kinds of questions, and it can also bring up a vote of no confidence to members of the European Commission. And it also can have all kinds of debates on the European President or whatever institution as well. So it is a parliament with real important powers. Then we have the judiciary. It's the Court of Justice, and it's there in Luxembourg. And it's there for interpreting the European Union law and making sure that there is an equal application of the European Union law in each and every member state. And it really acts as a constitutional court of the European Union. It's there for interpreting and applying the European Union Treaty, but also secondary law. I explained that already earlier on. So it really is the constitutional court of the European Union. And in my mind, there is no doubt about that. Some people would argue with that, but within the normal constitutional framework, it is the constitutional court. There are other bodies as well, as some of them I already projected them on the screen, but I will not elaborate on them because they're quite familiar to you as well. The Ombudsman and the Council, the Court of Auditors. But some special attention I want to give just briefly to the Council of Regions. There's a typo there, not the Council or Regions, but the Council of Regions. And that's, you have a bicameral system in Indonesia, with the House of Representatives and indeed the House that is representing the regions in Indonesia. within the European Union we have some kind of an advisory body, and it's there for giving advices on all kinds of issues that are on the local level. There are a lot of members there, and they represent the cities and regions, and it advises on EU and policies. And it also involves, make sure that a lot of local issues are also taken into consideration in EU matters. So it's a very important advisory body for making sure that all these regional interests, all these local interests are also taken into account within the framework of the European Union. Separate, of course, of all these other institutions as well, who have a basis in national law. Then just very briefly how the legislative process works. As already mentioned, there is a draft always in many cases there's a draft of the European Commission. Then it goes to citizens, and also kinds of groups. It's all out there in the open, it's been published. For instance, also the Council of Regions is involved. Then, after this input, it goes back to the European Commission and it makes a formal proposal. Then Parliament and the Council of Ministers has to decide on it jointly, like you have in a normal parliamentary system, where indeed the government and Parliament has to decide jointly on legislation. And then it goes back to the national authorities who are responsible for making sure that they implement it, and there's a Commission and the Court of Justice who are monitoring the implementation of this legislation. So it might be, it's a very simple scheme, very simple schedule, and it is indeed, when you really look into it, this is the scheme. But of course, it is also about politics. And politics is not that simple as you have it on this schedule, of course, and on this scheme. A lot of negotiation is involved, a lot of debates are involved, a lot of issues on finances are involved, but in the end, this is the procedure from a constitutional point of view. This is how it works. Then finally, a brief assessment on what the European Union is. It's a unique structure all over the world, I think. And it's gradually grown into that. It was a very, modest construction initially in 1950, with only a few member states, 6 to be precise, more on a treaty basis, no constitutional, no political references to forming a state or something like that. But gradually, decade after decade, more institutions came in, more constitutional law came in, more policies came in, and more member states came in. And now we have a situation where we have a, supranational construction, as we call it in constitutional law, at least in Europe we call it that way, with a which shows a lot of resemblance to what we have in ordinary constitutions, in ordinary constitutional law. And it is indeed setting an example for a lot of other countries in the world. You see some parts in the world where they are really looking into what's going on in the European Union. And I give you just one example, which is the CARICOM. CARICOM is a cooperation, and in fact even more than that, it's a treaty with all kinds of states in the Caribbean, or near the Caribbean. And what it's doing momentarily is setting up a system that's quite comparable to what the European Union is. It has a court, and the court, and it's very awkward to see it every now and then where I'm there, the court explicitly refers to decisions that have been made by the Court of Justice in Luxembourg to explain how the law within CARICOM works. So it's really an example. The European Union is really an example for CARICOM. And there are other countries in the world who are working together, also in Latin America, well, organizing their cooperation in a way that more and more resembles what's being done in the European Union. And every now and then I hear also a discussion here in Asia and in Indonesia whether or not the Asian countries, the ASEAN Treaty, will also gradually grow into a situation to some extent perhaps comparable to what the European Union is all about. I'm not saying that it should go in that direction or it will go in that direction, but you really see quite a lot of developments that, yeah, well, where many countries look into what's going on in the European Union and say, well, perhaps that's the way forward for us as well. That idea of the European Union and the further development of the European Union has become a bit under pressure. And you're well aware of that, because there was a Brexit. The British stepped out. And although only by a very narrow margin, it was decided in a referendum. And some people were afraid of this idea that also other countries would step out as well. There was this issue that perhaps the Netherlands would step out. There was a discussion about an exit. Or even France would step out. A Frexit, as they call it. Is there any serious risk of that? In my view, no. Especially there is no risk for an exit. People thought that in the last general elections in the Netherlands, Mr. Wilders, you know the guy with the blonde hair, would get a majority in parliament. And in fact, a lot of foreign correspondents came to the Netherlands with that expectation. They were following the Dutch elections with the idea, well, that will be the next step after the next step after the Trump revolution. We have a revolution in the European Union as well. Mr. Wilders and his party in this in the last general elections were nowhere there. They had only 12–13% of the electoral vote. So no majority, no possibility that he and his supporters would get the opportunity to step out of the European Union. And a lot of evidence shows momentarily, at least the opinion polls show, that also France will stay in the European Union. That the one and only party that wants to step out of the European Union, the right-wing extremist party of the Front National, the National Front, will get not enough seats for not enough votes for the presidential elections, who are due by the end of April, and the second round will be at the beginning of May. I think that what's very important to stress is that the Brexit was indeed a very important signal for the rest of the European Union. A very important signal that populist parties, parties are only there for saying, yeah, we are the representatives of the people, and the rest are enemies, and where we don't want to have immigrants here, and etc., etc. That these parties are given a signal that something should be done when it comes to more trustworthy policies, more trustworthy politics, acceptable to the larger part of the citizens in the European Union. And what's happened quite recently is that I think that the rest of the members of the European Union are making sure that they take these signals very seriously. And I think there are already plans there and policies there that will make sure that they will take more into account what's happening in the lives and minds of ordinary citizens within the European Union. I give you just one example. One of the things that happened in the United Kingdom was that some of these people there were completely fed up with a lot of Eastern European people coming into their country and earning a lot of money there. And why did all these Polish people go to the European Union, to the United Kingdom? And I'll explain that already, because if they went to work in the United Kingdom, they had to pay them the same salaries as British citizens, under the same conditions, the same healthcare, etc., etc. So a lot of Polish people like to go there. And why did they like to go there? Because in their home country, the wages were much lower. So yeah, they could earn a lot of extra money by going to the United Kingdom. And the fact that there is a difference in salary in all these different countries, organizes a lot of movement within the European Union. And a lot of citizens think now that it's not fair. If I want to work in Poland, I get a lower wage for the same work I'm going to do. So in order to make sure that the equal treatment has really substance when it comes to the treatment of workers, they are now working on this idea that for each and every job, under the same conditions, you have to earn the same amount of money in each and every country of the European Union. If I want to become a constitutional law professor in Poland, then I would earn the same amount of money as I earn now in the Netherlands. So that would create a more equal level playing field for all citizens in Europe. I think that's the next step. That's the step we have to make sure there will be a bigger acceptance, a greater acceptance of citizens within the European Union for the further development of the European Union. And I think there is a lot of evidence now showing that the European Union really takes these signals, the rise of populist parties and also the Brexit as such, very seriously. So, well, as I said earlier this week, but you were not the audience at that time, but I tell you as well, I'm just a simple constitutional law professor and not a fortune teller, of course. But if I were to make a certain prediction for the next future, I would see a European Union that's it's further deepening. Probably we have a European Union with what we call two velocities. The leaders in the European Union, countries are getting more and more together, and certain countries that are somewhat back. But the structure of the European Union will stay there. There's no doubt about that, I think, because it has so many advantages for each and every one. Not only for businesses, but also for ordinary citizens when it comes to work and to live, etc., etc. So that's, I think, the key issue. By far, the majority wants to stay within the European Union. Majority of the people as well. So that will be, I think, the way forward. And that could possibly be that in some years to come, not in the coming 2 years. But perhaps after the next elections in the UK, and perhaps after the negotiations between the European Union and the UK have been ended, and all the dust has come down to the ground, and everybody sees clearly what's happened. Then, in some years from now, the people in the UK will think, it was a real regrettable step. And there are already a lot of citizens within the United Kingdom who are really regretting that step. And especially the younger generations are regretting that step. And in fact, when you look from a political science view what happened in the elections for the Brexit, the younger generation voted to remain in the European Union. The older generations voted for the Brexit, to go out of the European Union. And there are a lot of young students, also young students, organizations of students, who were very, very angry with the results of the referendum in the UK. Because they said, this older generation, who has no future anymore, they're old. They are ruining our future. They're ruining the possibilities to work and to live in other countries within the European Union. We will have to face far more difficult circumstances. We in the Netherlands get a lot of students from the UK in our master programs. We're very happy to have them, in many cases of a high quality, very interesting. But after the Brexit has been completed, then these students have to pay tremendous amounts of money to get into these programs in the Netherlands and in Germany, etc., etc. So these students are very much afraid of what's going on now and what the Brexit will mean for their own future. So this generation will become more and more important, will become politicians, members of parliament, even members of government. So it could well be, but as already said, I'm not a fortune teller, that at some point in time the people in the UK will regret it. And then you have another Brexit, but what they call already a regrexit. We're regretting what we did. Well, let's see how it goes. For now, thank you very much, and we're happy to answer all kinds of questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Very interesting topic actually. But maybe some of you are not really familiar with this issue, but just to make a trigger for this issue, maybe you can compare European Union with, for example, the regional organization that Indonesia is one of the members of that organizations. Do you know what it is? ASEAN, yeah. Some people say, some scholars say, ASEAN try to, I'm not saying copy paste is too harsh, but some terminologies used by ASEAN member states, sometimes they similar. It is similar with what are exist in European Union actually. And we will open Q&A sessions. Is there any of you want to raise your hand and ask questions about this issue? Anyone? Yeah. I will limit the questions only for three persons. Ya, Mbak yang di sana, Mas yang di sana. Oke, yang di sana. Oke, langsung maju ke depan. We can give a round of applause for the participants. Not you actually. That one. No, not you. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Jadi sebentar. Bisa saya microphone.
Of the international program. So I heard that the goal of the European Union is to achieve both economic and social prosperity within its members. However, I see that in the light of the increasing refugee conflicts, European Union is one of the most targeted places to go due to the variety of social security that refugees can attain. However, due to geographical proximity and policies like the Dublin regulation, it allows the refugees to be concentrated in places such as Greece, which provides inequality, and understanding the economic differences within the members of the European Union. How can the European Union impose mechanisms of burden sharing and not burden shifting to ensure that the economic and social prosperity among the members are attained? Thank you.
Regarding the European Union and Brexit. In the media it is commonly depicted that Angela Merkel made the decision to open up Germany's borders in particular to the refugees last year, a couple of years ago. However, why does every European country in continental Europe seemingly open up to refugees? Was it a European Union decision, or was it Germany's unilateral decision and every single other state followed it? I would like to see it in a constitutional perspective. Thank you. And the second question is regarding Brexit. Yesterday, I read an article from Reuters. It said that in the last 3 months, 45,000 jobs had opened up in the United Kingdom after the Brexit process began, and currently now it is being processed, Article 20, if I'm not mistaken. So where is the regret in this? Well, you mentioned earlier during your lecture that there is a certain regret regarding Brexit, but it has, in many ways, it has opened up new doors in the economy, especially for the lower class. So if there is an explanation for this, I would love to hear it. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Professor. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to ask you two questions regarding the Britain exit too. First question is, why does exactly the Britain want to leave the EU? From her lecture, I can conclude that there is no reason not to join the EU. And what are their considerations for leaving the EU? And the second question is there any benefit for countries which is not a member of the EU? Like for example, does the EU offer security purpose for the countries in the Euro which is not a member of the EU? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for these questions. Very important ones. Partly surrounding the Brexit, partly surrounding this idea of how to deal with refugees. I explicitly did not mention the issue of refugees because it's to a large extent very complicated, but I was sure that you would come up with one of these questions. Well, one of these important issues is that there is a regulation within the European Union that makes it clear that we have to deal in the European Union with refugees on in an equal way. And there's also a special approach that if you enter into the European Union, that country, the first country of entrance, has to decide whether or not you are indeed a genuine asylum seeker and that you can stay in that European Union. That's the general idea on migration law in the European Union. So the first country that you enter has to decide or not you can stay within the European Union. If the decision has been made that you can stay in the European Union, then in many cases you can travel and go freely within the European Union. So it is very important to have a very good scrutiny of people from outside the European Union as soon as they enter the European Union. This is, I think, a very important issue. Then, of course, we had a tremendous crisis of all these refugees coming in from North Africa, from Arabia, etc., etc. And at that time it was simply not possible for dealing with all these problems solely by Italy, solely by Greece, solely by the countries at the Mediterranean. So in the end the decision was made. We have to have very clear procedures about the entrance still of all these immigrants, but there has to be some burden sharing. It cannot be that only Italy, only Greece and only the countries living surrounding the Mediterranean are responsible for letting them in, etc., etc., and taking care of the influx of immigrants. So it has been decided, well, we have to give a lot of money to these countries and a lot of people to help them to scrutinize what's going on, to scrutinize all these immigrants, making sure that they're genuine refugees. But as soon the decision has been made that they are allowed to enter the European Union as such, then we have to have some burden sharing. That each and every country of the European Union is willing to accept these immigrants because there's simply too much to deal with in a certain part of Europe. So it's a very complicated arrangement that has been made. Also with Turkey, because a lot of people came up in from Turkey. Turkey was giving a lot of extra money to make sure that people stay there for a certain period of time in order to assess, to be able to assess whether or not they're really genuine immigrants, genuine refugees, fleeing from the threats, for instance, in Syria, chemical threats or whatever. And then they can come into the European Union, and then they have an equal distribution. You are aware of the fact that some of these countries in the European Union are not well living up by the standards by now. Poland and Hungary still have problems with that. But in general, this is the policy of the European Union. Then the question about refugees and Germany. Indeed, Bundeskanzler, the Prime Minister of Germany, said, "Wir schaffen das." We will take care of it. We make sure that we deal with it. And the fact that she said it was quite explainable from the history of Germany, because there is still a tremendous scar there in Europe, because Hitler Germany started the war, created the Holocaust. Billions and millions of people are dead, were killed during the Second World War, because of the Germans and this war policy. And therefore, and a lot of refugees went to other parts of Europe, went to other parts of the world due to the way Germany acted during the Second World War. So they have a special position now in the European Union, and Angela Merkel is very well that if there is a problem about immigrants, we should try to deal with it. But of course Germany is not alone in that issue. It cannot decide unilaterally on these issues. So immediately after, it was a more political outcry of hers. And yeah, well, we shuffled us. When these immigrants come into Germany, we will have to take them in. We will have to accept them. And not expel them to other countries. No, we have to accept these people that will come in from Germany. And that was more and more prior to the decisions that were made later on how to deal with the immigrants, the refugees, in the entire European Union. She was simply talking, at least a lot of people consider that was the point. She was simply talking about how Germany should deal with people coming in her country of Germany, not about the European Union as such. So it's not making decisions for the rest of the European Union. Yeah, then a very intriguing question. Yeah, well, the results of the Brexit. What the Reuters report, I should know. Yeah, well, the dust has not been cleared up. And there are things on the ground going on. You can see it already. The value of the currency of the pound has decreased very steeply. There is a lot of discussion about financial institutions getting out, banks getting out, other institutions as well, and all the European Union institutions who are there in the UK. And also has to do with a lot of employment as well, especially in the financial sector. When all these banks go to Amsterdam or Frankfurt or other countries of the European Union, yeah, it will certainly have an effect on employment in the UK as well. But you're quite right. We are not sure how it's going to be. In general, we see in Europe, but we see it also in more developed countries. We see through the developments in the economy on a worldwide scale that the people like you and me, the people with diplomas, the intelligent people will find their way anyhow. They will get their jobs. They will get their jobs all over the world. No problem whatsoever. The problem lies, of course, with the less educated, with the people who have hardly any knowledge. Their positions in many cases are being threatened. And it could well be, and you're quite right in that people with these positions are going to be better off, but we're not sure about that, going to be better off in the UK after the Brexit. But we're not sure because the UK itself has also, the conservatives are in power. They're much about the market economy. I'm not sure that they're going to take care of what the low wages employers are going to earn, what job opportunities are going to be there. So perhaps you're quite right. I'm not a fortune teller, I already told you that, but I'm to some extent a maniac optimist. I see a very bright future there for the European Union still. But it could well be that the British are better off at least some British people are better off. But I suppose, I'm quite sure that the people with more education, more diplomas, will have more problems in getting jobs outside the UK. Yeah, well, then the question about what were the exact reasons for the British to step out of the European Union. If I only would know, I could earn a lot of money. But there was a lot of research being done right after the Brexit on what the major issues were. Because a lot of people were still amazed, still are amazed of how this could come about. One of the things that happened was that, at least one of the reasons that were given was that a lot of people were afraid of having extra immigrants. And immigration was a big issue. And that was the main reason that, for instance, that the United Kingdom Independence Party, the UKIPers, under the leadership of Nigel Farage, were very much campaigning for the Brexit. Although, yeah, well, you can never be sure what was going to happen after that. The second thing that happened, that was quite amazing for many people, was just that a few weeks before the Brexit, there was a lot of rumors going around, also created by, for instance, the party of Mr. Farage, that right after the Brexit, there would be more money there for the UK. There would be more money for instance, free healthcare, extra money for education. He was talking about billions and billions of pounds that would flux into the country and would, yeah, well, it would free up the people of the United Kingdom. Was there any truth in it? Now he's saying, yeah, well, he was not saying that exactly, but yeah, well, it was one of the reasons that people perhaps thought, yeah, well, that's a reason for me to vote to get out. And of course, there are these people in the United Kingdom with a very historical view and very historical perspective on what the UK is all about. We are the country that once ruled the world. We ruled the waves. We are the most important. We were the most important country in the world at some point in time. We lived in splendid isolation, as they say always in the UK. And so we want to have a brighter future by looking at our history. And one of the strong supporters of that view was, for instance, the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, Boris Johnson. Another guy with blonde hair, as you know. So there's a strange combination of all kinds of things that make people decide to step out of the European Union. You never know if there's any truth in it. If they brought the right arguments to the table, but I think these are the three main reasons why people indeed voted for the Brexit. Yeah? Okay.
Maybe one last question. Is there any? Maybe I can give to the guy who over there. Yeah, sorry. No, okay. Professor said you also can take the question. So two last questions. Yeah, please come forward. Okay, please only one questions because we don't have much time. Only one questions per person. Please mention your name.
Good morning. My name is Muhammad Faiz Raksor.
Okay. Yeah. Please speak louder. Yeah.
My name is Muhammad Faiz Raksor.
Faiz. Okay.
I see. Yeah, I want to ask about some separatist movement going on in some European Union members. countries like Catalonia in Spain, Bavaria in Germany, and even some region in France. I forget the name, but what is going to happen to them if they ever manage to gain their independence from their mother country like Spain and Germany? Will they remain in the EU or will they leave the EU? And what if they remain in the EU? Then what makes it any different with them being independent from their previous mother country and remain in the previous country?
Okay,
Like
got your
Catalonia.
questions. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Next one, ladies.
Good morning, sir. So,
Okay.
only one question.
Yeah, only one question. Please don't ask more.
For you, like as you said before,
Please speak louder.
as you said before, there are some countries that have tried to apply for the EU, but they failed because they couldn't fulfill some certain standards. For example, they don't have the democracy and the rule of law that is suitable for the EU. Countries like Turkey, they apply death penalty and it is forbidden by the EU. So my question is, do you think it's possible for those countries to reapply and get accepted by the EU if they somehow one day make some changes and can finally fulfill the EU standards?
Okay.
Thank you.
The questions about membership. Okay. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause for our two persons. Professor, the time is yours.
Yeah, well, a very interesting question about all these regions in Europe, in certain countries that want to have autonomy or independence even. Catalonia, in France they're not that strong anymore. The people in Bretagne, Brittany, next to Great Britain. But I think there's even a more important region within the European Union that has independence issues. It's Scotland. Scotland, still part of the European Union, is applying for having another referendum on the independence of the UK. And immediately when Prime Minister May filed their request for stepping out of the European Union just last week before that, the Prime Minister of Scotland said, yeah, well, and now we're going to have a referendum on the independence of Scotland once more, because during the Brexit referendum, the large majority of the Scottish people voted to remain in the European Union. And you see it elsewhere as well. When it comes to, for instance, Catalonia, there is no way that the people from Catalonia want to get out of the European Union. And in fact, they are very much supporting the European Union because it opens up their opportunities. Like in Scotland and in Catalonia, there's a lot of economy attached to what the European Union is. So it's only about independence of their own country for specific reasons. Cultural reasons, historic reasons, language reasons, and even economic reasons. And I think the European Union as such has hardly anything to say about that, doesn't want to say anything about that. There is this Council of Regions that, well, takes into account certain wishes and demands of regions. But when it comes to the unity of a country as a member of the European Union, it leaves it, at least up until now, entirely to that national part of the country. There was, to some extent, and just yesterday I discussed it with some of my colleagues, also with my colleague Ali here sitting next to me, is about sovereignty within the European Union. Some people would say, yeah, well, countries are not sovereign anymore. Yeah, well, they still are being sovereign within the European Union. They entered the European Union within their own free will. And if they don't agree with decisions that are being made, well, they have the possibility to enter into negotiations to change the constitution of the treaty once more, like we do in a normal constitutional framework as well. If you think that the constitutional court has made decisions that you don't agree with, then you should try to change the constitution. That's a thing that you can also do within the framework of the European Union, and you can step out, of course. But coming back to the idea of the regions, I think that it will have no effect on the European Union as such, except that at least the countries that you mentioned and that I know of, these regions that want to be independent, they only want to be independent from their home country, so to say, their own nation, and not from the European Union as such. Then the question of the lady on the entrance of the European Union. What if they change their legislation to meet certain requirements? Yeah, well, that's indeed the thing that's going on. These countries that I mentioned, Albania, Serbia, Bosnia, and there are some other countries as well, even Turkey, have applied for European Union membership, and there's a program at stake momentarily to make sure that, and we work very closely together with these countries, that they gradually improve their legislation, gradually improve the workings of their economy, their democracy, etc., etc. And it will take them some years, and it will take them some time, and in the end, if they still want to apply for the European Union membership, they could enter the European Union. So that they are now already working in very close cooperation with these other countries to create a situation where it would be possible to enter this European Union, like we also did with all these countries in the eastern part of Europe, like Poland, Hungary, and other. You never know what happens after they have entered, of course, but there is a program there, and it works for many years now to make sure that they meet up the standards that we have been setting within the European Union when it comes to democracy, rule of law, fundamental rights, etc. Hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. Maybe just some additional statements. Correct me if I'm wrong. Usually, when a country wants to apply for the membership to the European Union, usually European Union has an initial agreement with that country, which is called association agreement. So it's kind of orientation agreement before that countries want to apply for the membership of European Union. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Henk Kummeling. Please give a round of applause for Professor Henk Kummeling. It is a very honor for us to having you here, Professor. Tomorrow, Professor will fly back to Schiphol, Amsterdam. Oh, and hopefully this is not your last visit here, Professor. It seems like all students will miss you for having you here. And thank you very much, students, for giving a very good attention for this class. And I also want, on behalf of Department of Constitutional Law, Fakulty of Law, Universitas Indonesia, I want to say thank you very much, Professor Henk Kummeling. Please once again give a round of applause for Professor Henk Kummeling from Utrecht University. And please pay attention to all lecture materials last week and today. It may be can be one of the questions in your final exam. Okay. That's it. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.